Okay, please welcome astronaut Sunny Williams.
Can I make it bigger?
Hi guys.
Hello.
Good to see you. I see all of your little faces there. You guys doing all right?
Yes.
All right, so you're at High Rock?
Yes.
Yeah, how do you like that school?
It's really very good.
It's how far is it from the future Sunny Williams school?
A mile? 2 miles?
Yeah, a couple miles.
2 miles.
Is it a couple miles? Okay, I haven't seen it yet. How's that school looking? Are they doing all
It's
right?
giant. It's really giant. It's modern.
I'll have to get the report from you. It's such an honor. I'm so psyched to be able to come back to Needham to see you guys. You know, I went to school there. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I moved to Needham when I was 1. I was born in Ohio. Moved to Needham when I was 1. So I went through all Needham schools. I went to, I think, a bunch of them actually. Dwight, Highland, Hillside, and then Newman was my middle school, and then I went to the high school. So I'm, doing what you guys, I did what you guys are doing right now, and somehow I was a Needham Rocket, just like you guys will be if you're in high school there. And then, who knows what you're going to do, and maybe one of you might come and work for NASA. What do you think about that?
That'd be pretty cool.
Awesome. But in the meantime, I hear you guys are doing a cool robotics program, right?
Yeah.
Your project, so long duration space flight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, right now, we do long duration space flight on the International Space Station, but that's just a test bed. It's just a laboratory to figure out how we're going to actually live in space for a long time when your generation is going to maybe taking that trip to Mars, maybe back to the moon and maybe onto Mars. And so we got a lot to figure out. So tell me about your project maybe, okay? And then, I think you guys have some questions, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they have a little introduction. If you don't mind, they'll kind of go through their introduction for you and then ask some questions.
Perfect.
Okay, Trevor.
Okay. Hi, my name is Trevor. We are part of Team Roboplatypi. We are a private LEGO robotics team that has been doing this for 2 years. We all go to High Rock School here in Needham, and we participate in a competition called FLL, which stands for First LEGO League.
Hi, my name is Julian. This competition has 2 different parts. The first is where we build a robot that does some specific topic-based missions. The second part is thinking of a problem and a solution and presenting it to a certain array of judges. This year's topic is orbit into space.
Hi, my name is Destin. The people who run FLL told us to create a problem that astronauts face in space or on their way to space. And here's what we came up with.
Hi, my name is Ryan. Our problem is astronauts can run low on oxygen in space, and machines that fix this are expensive and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Aria. Our solution to astronauts running low on oxygen in space is by using plants.
Hi, my name is Ben. We think this will work because plants are cheap, user-friendly, and lightweight.
All right, cool. I like it. I think it's a great idea. We're not doing that quite yet, and so this is a really good idea, and I think you guys are hitting the nail on the head. I think you might have maybe some questions about it too. Do you know what we're doing now?
No.
No. Oh, okay. You want to know about that a little bit?
Yes.
Sure.
A little bit of history, and then we'll move into the future.
Yeah.
Sure.
That sound good? So what we're doing right now is, in the past we used to bring up oxygen, like on the space shuttle. It brought up liquid hydrogen or cryogenic hydrogen and oxygen, and so there was plenty of oxygen, so it was fine because that was actually the fuel tank for the battery. For the fuel cell that it used to actually generate electricity. So there was plenty. So while we were building the International Space Station, we were able to get oxygen up there, of course, from the space shuttle. And a second way we got oxygen to the International Space Station from the shuttle and also from resupply vehicles was when they mixed hydrogen and oxygen, what do you get? Water, right, H2O, you guys know that, right?
Yeah.
And so all that excess water, and that was in the fuel cell, the electrons went to power the shuttle, all that water they used to give to the space station. So the space station had all this water, and then we had a machine, like you mentioned, that was heavy, that would split it apart, and that's how we got oxygen. So that's how we've done this in the past. Now we don't have the shuttle anymore, but we still have a source of water up there.
Urine?
Aha, you got it. And so now we take not only urine, but also when you're out in the field out in the recess and you're running around, you're sweating. Well, we do the same thing inside the space station, and our sweat gets collected also. So the sweat and the urine get processed through a big machine, and that cleans the water so we can drink it. And then secondly, we can split that water into hydrogen and oxygen and breathe it. But again, that's a big machine. So plants are a really good idea. And why do you think, I think there's a secondary reason that maybe you haven't touched on why plants are a really good idea.
They create oxygen and take carbon dioxide.
They take carbon dioxide, you're absolutely right. So it's interesting, when you go through and you look at all the, like what are your consumables on a spacecraft? That means what are the things you're going to run out of, or how do you replenish stuff, or what is your problems, what are your big problems is? The biggest problem actually is high carbon dioxide. We humans, we put out a lot of gas. Whether, I don't know if your parents tell you, my husband tells me all the time, you put out a lot of hot air. And yeah, we put out a lot of hot air. That's all that carbon dioxide. And that is actually going to be the first thing that kills you. And so the plants are a great idea because that takes not only the place of the one machine to make the oxygen, but it takes the place of two machines, because that way you don't have to get rid of the carbon dioxide with the machine. So plants on Earth are awesome. So we just need to figure out how to make plants in a spacecraft that awesome, that can do all that. So you guys hit the nail on the head. I think that's a great, great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So do you have any questions about how that's going to happen? What can I help you with a little bit?
Yes, I have a question. Do you have any current problems with oxygen?
Are there any current problems with oxygen?
Yeah.
Like, I would say straight oxygen. Are you guys aware of this, like straight 100% oxygen, which is sort of what we deal with, is sort of dangerous? You guys heard of the fire triangle, right? Yeah. So you have, a fuel, a spark, and oxygen, right? Of course. So that's what's dangerous about 100% oxygen in space. But that's what we make, right? Because that's how you do it. You have water, you break it down, it's 100% O2 and 100% hydrogen. And so that's a dangerous thing about oxygen. Whereas the plant situation, I think that's not going to be as big as a deal. It's going to be giving out some oxygen, but it's not in it probably won't be in high concentrations like we have it stored in containers of 100% oxygen. So that's a little bit dangerous. But the capacity of the oxygen in that regard might be a little bit less. You might not have as much. Like we have 100% O2, we only have to use a little bit at a time to put in the atmosphere, right? Because it's like 21% of our atmosphere. When you look at like the big 100% of our air, is a lot of it's nitrogen, and then there's only like 20% that's O2. So we only have to use a little bit of that oxygen. Are you following me? Maybe I'm talking a little too crazy right now, but you got what I'm saying a little bit?
Yeah.
So the plants you might have to continually have those plants working to be able to make that oxygen. So that might be an issue, so you just got to figure out how to do that efficiently and capture the oxygen from the plants.
I have another question.
Yeah?
On the ISS, you do a lot of experiments. Did you ever do experiments with plants when you were on the ISS?
Yeah, actually we did some, not too many. We did some with like bean sprouts. And the reason we were doing that because plants grow weird in space. We think of plants here, we put them in the ground and they grow up, right? And that seems normal. They grow toward the sun, and against gravity, their roots go down. We had plants and we wanted to put them in like a Mars environment, and so we put them with a little bit less gravity in a centrifuge, and we were able to grow them that way. And they did grow somewhat like they do on Earth. There was not as much as a factor. Like everything about us and things that are on Earth understand gravity some way, somehow, right? Because we all grew up here and we evolved here, I guess. And so the plants grew a little more spreading because they didn't have to work against gravity under a Mars gravity in a centrifuge. When I was up there, though, another gentleman was growing some beans down on the Russian side, and we didn't have soil because how are you going to put stuff in soil? That's going to be a little tricky. So what they did, they had essentially like burlap, and they put the seeds between two folds of burlap, and then were able to water it. And I think when they were watering it, I didn't know exactly how they were doing that, but I think they were putting the food in with the water, like a hydroponic sort of. And then they had the light on the top, and so the plants were growing up because they wanted beans to grow like beans, like not like crazy beans. They wanted the plant to grow up and then the beans to sort of grow from them. So it was trying to emulate Earth. I'm not positive that's the ideal way to do it. I know another experiment, not on ISS, but in a laboratory here, where they had wheat growing, and they had wheat growing where there was a bike, a stationary bike. So everybody would do their exercise, and they're churning out as much carbon dioxide as they can while they're exercising, and then the wheat was in things all around them to help the wheat grow, and then the lights again were on the ceiling because that wasn't in space. But you could do the same thing on the ISS. There's a picture of me on the bike in the ISS right behind me, and we do the same thing just to keep your orientation. We have the lights on a quote-unquote ceiling so everybody can knows what's up supposedly and what's down, so you don't get totally confused. So I think that would work also. You know, that's another source of carbon dioxide for the plants.
I also have a question. Do you have any ideas on how you would keep plants from floating?
Keep plants from floating. Yeah, you'd have to have some type of tray that they're in, and then, like I was mentioning about the burlap, you have to have something to hold their roots so they don't just float out of there, because the roots are the thing that is going to need some type of food, right? And that's where the water is going to come into play. You know, I used to think that if I just sprinkled water on the plants, that's how they grew in my backyard. And my husband reminded me, you know, hey, dummy, it doesn't work that way. You actually have to put water on the ground, and the roots suck it in, and that's how it grows. And that's specific. You know, it makes a lot of sense for space too, because you know, you don't want to just have have you seen water in space? Have you guys seen what that looks like? It makes these amazing cool spheres, so you can't really just sprinkle water on something. You have to really probably use a syringe or some type of system that will push the water into where the roots are so it can collect them. So you're going to have another secondary water system that's going to be associated with the plants. Chell's doing something in the background there. What's he doing? What's he growing? Is that lettuce? Oh, that's lettuce. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so there have been some lettuce on the space station, but you see how big it is, and we have 6 people on the space station, so that, you know, maybe gave everybody one salad. So we haven't perfected this where we've grown, like I was telling you about the wheat, where we have a whole bunch of lines of stuff, because it will take a little bit of overhead to set up exactly what you said, like how do you hold the roots in there, and how do you water them? What's the system you're going to use, and how are you going to feed them nutrients? So those are the tricky little things but you guys can figure all that stuff out. Yeah. Do you guys want to see water in space? So you get a deal about what I'm talking about? Oh, it's behind my head. Yeah. So that's what water is like, and there's air bubbles in the water, which is pretty cool. Now we're inside of the water. It's the camera actually that is doing this. So the camera's inside the water, so you can get a feel. It's sort of, you know, reminds you of like jelly. You know, it's sort of like goo, clear goo, but it is water. So you just have to have a way to try to figure out how to deal with that. What else?
On the space station, you're with a team. So, did you ever have any problems with that team?
Sure, everybody has problems. Do you guys get into little arguments in your team right here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. So, you know, we're busy, which is great, because when you're busy, you don't really have time to have an argument, but sometimes you're working on things together, and maybe one guy has an idea how about it, and another guy has another idea, and also that's one thing. That's a little bit of work, and you can discuss that, and technically you can potentially figure out the best solution just by having a discussion and laying it out on the table. But then sometimes people just, you know, get tired and they get aggravated and they're hungry or whatever, and then sometimes you just don't want to be bothered by people. The space station, luckily, is pretty big. You see it behind my shoulder there. Most of that is actually outside. It's about the size of a soccer field, but there's a big tube in the center where we work, and it's like the size of an airliner. So everybody has their own sleep station, and you can get away from other people by going to your sleep station, and there you have your computer, you have the ability to call home and just sort of touch base with people back on Earth. And so that's nice. You can sort of get away from people when you just need a break. But in the end game, you're stuck in there, right, with those 5 other people, right? So you have to figure it out. You got to work it out. So at some point in time, you just got to swallow your pride a little bit and say, hey, you made me a little bit mad about this, that, the other thing. I distinctly remember one time when I had a whole bunch of little teeny jobs, and when you have a lot of little jobs on your timeline, they usually take, like, say they're like 10 minutes, and they take 9 minutes out of that 10, and then you switch and do something else, and it's maybe a 30-minute task, and it takes you 23 minutes or whatever. So you never really have a chance to take a break and even just go to the bathroom. You're just busy, busy, busy. But if you have like a big task, maybe like 2 hours, you might get that done 15 minutes early, and you can go have a cup of coffee or something to drink and go to the bathroom. And I was up there with one gentleman who was very experienced, and so he would finish his stuff early, and he had one of these big tasks, and he's flying around just hanging out, listening to music, drinking his coffee, and I'm flying around like a crazy person, getting all these tests done, and I got really mad, and he's like, hey, what's wrong? I said, I'm really mad because I have all this work to do, and you're just sitting around. But I had to say something, and he's like, oh my gosh, I just didn't even notice. I'm sorry. Let me help you with this, 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 and this. So yeah, of course, this is like any family. But he's one of my best friends. I just called him the other night because he's a huge Red Sox fan. He lives in California, so we're like, go Red Sox! And we're just good friends. And so those little things, you have to get it out. You have to have a discussion, but it's fine. That's just like you with your brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you guys know what I'm talking about.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was it like outside the space station?
Ooh, spacewalking?
Yeah.
That's sort of super cool, huh? It's really fun, but it's a little bit hard. Actually, I have a spacewalking practice this Friday in our pool. We have this thing called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. It's a big, huge pool, and we have a mock-up of the space station inside of there. And we go down on a dawning stand, on a crane, essentially, into the pool. You're in that big suit. So in the pool, the suit is like a balloon because it's pressurized, and so it has a lot of air in it, so you'd float. To make it neutrally buoyant to simulate space, a bunch of divers are there, the guys with the tanks behind me, and they put weights on you to make you like neutrally buoyant where you are, where you're going to do the work on the space station. So it's really representative because it makes you feel like you're microgravity, like you're floating, and then you can use the suit and the tools to do the spacewalk. It's very similar, except for it's water all around you. In space, it's vacuum all around you. So it's a little bit different there, right? So the difference is interesting. Like to get moving in a pool, like just like you're walking in the pool, when you start, if you're in the shallow end and you start walking, it's a little bit hard at first to get moving, but then it's super easy to stop. Well, space is absolutely opposite of that. So in space, there's nothing to stop you. There's no water pushing against you. So if you want to get moving, you just take your hand real easily and go, whoop, and you'll start flying, across the space station. You'll just start moving. There's nothing to stop you. And then when you stop, you have to add a lot of force. You have to counter that momentum to stop yourself, and that's when all the strength comes in. But spacewalking is awesome because it's just you and that visor in that picture there, and you can look all around you. In the space station, of course, we have windows, but when you're in your spacesuit, you can look wherever you want to look, which is really cool. Like you can look down at Earth, you can look out into the universe. It's spectacular. So it's pretty cool. And you can ride the robotic arm at the end of the robotic arm. It's like a big crane. I did that on my first spacewalk. I rode from the space shuttle payload bay up onto the part of the space station. It's pretty fun. But again, it's hard work. The suit actually weighs about 300 pounds or so, up to about 500 pounds, depending on what tools you have on you. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't weigh anything. But that just means, remember what I was talking about, it's hard to stop. When you have that big mass and you're trying to stop yourself or move yourself around, you got to move that huge mass. I'm not just moving like 130 pounds of myself I'm moving 300 to 500 pounds when I'm trying to move around. So it's a big, big chunk of machinery all around you. And the cool thing about that suit is sort of like the problem you're solving. It's its own spacecraft. It has oxygen bottles in the back. It has it has a prime one, and then it has a backup in case you have an emergency. And it has carbon dioxide removal in the back, and that's a chemical reaction that gets rid of the carbon dioxide. It has cooling water to keep you cool because you're working hard in there. So you don't have an umbilical that's connecting you to the space station to provide all that stuff. That space suit is its own spacecraft. So you only have so much water that you can drink in there, and then you might have to go to the bathroom while you're in there. You're in the suit probably for spacewalks generally are around 6.5 hours, but it takes about an hour to put the suit on. So and then it takes about an hour to get out of the suit or so. So you're in the suit for about 8.5, 9 hours. You might have to go pee every now and then. So that happens. Hopefully you've done number 2 and that doesn't have to happen because that wouldn't be pretty. You're in there by your smelling that, and that's no good. But at least number 1, probably everybody's done that in the suit. So you have like a grown-up diaper on you while you're in there just in case. So it's all good. Are you learning things you didn't want to learn, I bet, huh? But spacewalks are cool. Spacewalks are absolutely cool.
When you exercise on the ISS, does it affect your oxygen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you have to, and this is one thing I didn't talk about. Yeah, that's a really good question. Because one of the things that the space station and your space suit for sure has to have is ventilation. So it means, like you have to have a fan that's moving all that air around. Because if you didn't, just like the water, the air would be this big pocket of oxygen maybe, or this big pocket of carbon dioxide. Like when you're sleeping in your little crew quarters, like I was telling you, everybody has a little sleep station where the doors close. It's nice because then it's dark and quiet. But if there was no air moving in there, you could put your head in a corner of CO2 and then you'd die, because you wouldn't have any oxygen to breathe. So getting back to exercise, when you're exercising like I was on the bike or on the treadmill behind me, right, you want to have fans blowing because you're putting out all that carbon dioxide, and you don't want to be running, stagnantly on the treadmill with carbon dioxide building up right in front of your face. So you want to have fans that are moving all that around, and you want to have a place where this oxygen is coming out, getting dispersed and sent all over the space station so people can breathe it. That is a big problem. So bubbles of those certain gases, it's not like on Earth, there's no wind up there, or there's no, natural mixing of air. Like when I'm in a building right now, there's a fan going on. So that's exactly what we need to have on the space station, and we need to have in spacecraft, that ventilation and moving around. That's a really good question, in particular for exercise. So if you are doing that, you want to have like all that CO2, that carbon dioxide coming out of you, going onto those plants, right? That would be good. That would be really good. You want to hear another gross story? You're young boys, I can tell you, can't I?
Yeah.
So, if you're in so the ventilation has a certain flow path, okay? So it goes through like vents in the ceiling down to the front of the space station. It collects in the center and then sort of flows back. As it flows back, it gets a little bit weaker, right? Because there's no real force except for the fans that push it through the interior to come back, and it then just naturally sort of gets sucked back. But it gets weaker and weaker as it's going. So the food up there is very interesting, right? It's not what you eat here. Some of it's dehydrated. Some of it is it's called thermostabilized, which is we use chemicals to make it last for a long time. And your body has to get used to processing that. And sometimes when you eat something new, it might cause you to have a little bit of gas, a little bit, maybe a little farty. So that happens up in space. Particularly new people come up and they're a little farty. And so if they're in the middle of some area where there's not a good flow of gas, you might fly through a bubble of that, and that's not that's another reason you need some good ventilation.
Do you ever get homesick?
Do I ever get homesick? Yeah, of course I got homesick. And you know, it's funny, I got homesick for interesting things, like different types of food that you really want, like you miss. I was really lucky, my family and friends sent up fluff. So I got to make a peanut butter and fluff sandwich while I was up there on a tortilla. But that was my good luck food every time I did a spacewalk. I had peanut butter and fluff. Another thing that I missed, you know, people I sort of missed, but we had like an internet protocol phone that we were able to make phone calls. But I really missed my dog, of course, a little Jack Russell named Gorby, because you don't get to talk to your dog. And my husband was getting really mad at me. He's like, stop talking about that darn dog so much, you missed him, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you know what Gorby means to me? Of course, he's like a little cuddly little thing. Of course, I loved him. But, you know, a dog makes you go out and go for a walk, right? And when you go for a walk, it's like my weather brief in the morning. I would get up early in the morning, take him for a walk. I knew if it was cloudy, if it was going to be sunny, if it was cold, if it was hot, if it was windy, if it was rainy. And all those things, those are the things you don't get in space. You're living in a building, essentially. You're living in a tube the whole time, so you don't get those natural air phenomena that are really nice, or those natural weather patterns. And that's really what I missed Earth, for Pete's sake. I really just missed Earth. And the second part of that is, I remember on my first mission, it was 6.5 months, it was long, and we were coming back in June. And here in Texas, it rains a lot in June, and I could see the storm clouds building over the Gulf of Mexico, going over the Texas area, and I was like, what I wouldn't give to have rain fall on my head. I would love to have a shower right now, because we don't have stuff that falls on us. You know, we got that water bubble, and we use that with a washcloth to clean us off, but there's like nothing better than standing and having rain and water come over your head. And so those are the things I was really homesick for. And I think you'd be homesick for that stuff too on your way to Mars. Mars might you be able to fashion up a shower because it has some gravity. The moon also, you'd have a little bit of gravity, so maybe you'd be able to get that stuff. But those big weather patterns, the change of the seasons, you're not going to get that. And I miss that a lot. I'm a New Englander. I missed apples, and I was super lucky on my second flight. A SpaceX Dragon, which is a cargo vehicle, came up, and one of the people who worked for SpaceX, their parents owned an apple orchard, and so there were 6 of us up there, so they sent up 6 crispy apples from an apple orchard in New York, and I couldn't believe it when I opened it up. I was like, yes, something crunchy. I was like, oh, because we don't get crunchy up there either. You get goopy food, the food's like lasagna and stuff, so something crunchy like a good fall apple is pretty awesome. Appreciate it.
I have another question, and it's pretty darn important.
Okay.
Did you know that the Needham Junction closed this summer?
The Needham what?
Junction, the ice cream place.
What? You serious?
Yeah.
What the heck?
It was like a property thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll still come to Needham, but darn it. That was very important news. Wow. How come things are changing so much? Oh, are you guys going trick-or-treating tonight?
Yeah.
All right, you got some good costumes?
Yeah. Hopefully.
What are you going to be?
I'm going to be a statue.
A statue?
Yeah. Like
Of
one
what?
of those statue impersonators who just stands there.
Oh, cool. Nice. That's pretty
I'm
awesome.
going to be dressed up as an invisible man.
How the heck are you going to do that?
A top hat, a cloak, and then goggles.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's innovative. Yeah, I like it.
I'm going to be a Dementor from Harry Potter.
Oh, cool. I like it. Harry Potter's pretty cool. I like Harry Potter.
I'm gonna be the Tin Man.
The Tin Man. Do you have the rest of the group with you?
Yes, my brother is gonna be the lion. My dad's gonna be the Scarecrow. Then my mom is gonna be Dorothy, and then my sister's being the Good Witch, and then my dog is being Toto.
Very cool. You got the whole gang with you. Do you guys like that movie? The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Yes.
It scared the heck out of me. Oh my God. I think I was your age and I was scared to death of that darn witch. I hated that witch. But I actually, funnily enough, I'm going to have a green face tonight. I'm going to be that witch.
What are you going to be on?
I'm gonna be a ghost.
A ghost. Easy peasy? Put that sheet on or what?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Classic.
I'm gonna be a headless guy holding his own head.
What's that?
Like a headless guy holding his head.
So how do you do that?
Like,
You're not going to chop your head off.
It's an inflatable.
no it isn't.
No, it's not.
How do you do it?
You have like a big trench coat and I made like there's a little thing that, like a backpack and like your head's in the middle.
Yeah.
Trench coat goes over you. So
Yeah.
kind of weird.
Is that Ichabod Crane? Something like that? Was that? No. Oh, that's a headless horseman. Okay. All right. You have to get it right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Your neighborhoods are going to have fun tonight. Looking forward to that, huh? Does anybody give out full-size candy bars, or does everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. There's
A lot of
full-size ones out there.
Yeah.
Some people give out like gum.
If you're the first one to some of those houses, you get 2.
Oh, that's score.
Sometimes
There's
you
always
get
a
lucky.
little, trick or treat there going on with, Halloween. You got to play it right. It's awesome.
Astronaut Williams, would it be possible for the boys to get a picture with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we have them? We have you up on the big screen. Can we have them kind of get around you here, and we'll have our parents take a couple pictures?
Uh-oh, the parents, have they heard me talking about all that yucky stuff? No. Now I'm a bad influence. Don't pass it around.
All right.
Move a little bit to the side so you're not.
Oh.
To the side.
Yeah, you put your like this, and you're like this. Turn just a little bit like that. Perfect. And you are, Astronaut Williams, you are fantastic.
And you look fabulous on that screen.
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't like it in high def. It scares me a little bit.
A couple pictures, couple more. Hang in there with us. This is, we good?
Thank you.
Awesome. Boys, do you have any last question that you might want to ask Astronaut Williams, or maybe say something to her?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. When do you guys when's the contest and everything?
November 17th.
17.
November 17th. Awesome. All right. I hopefully we'll hear some results
Yes.
and hear how you did, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck. Make Needham proud, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only team.
Go Needham.
Yeah.
Thank you.